And welcome back to another week of our Friday check-in. That's right. We do a complete review of fasting, how to prepare for a fast, how to get through a fast successfully, and how to break a fast. And you're going to get to see what I'm eating right here. I've got it right here. We're going to take a look at that here in just a minute as we get into the show. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. Once again, if you're new to me, that's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, go to the next level. We're creating the life we've always wanted, and we are living limitless lives. Wherever you're joining us from, whether that's on LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitch or Facebook or TikTok or right here on YouTube, I welcome you to the show. And I'm so happy that you are here. Go ahead and put a new in the comments if you are here for the first time, because I want to give you a hand clap and some music. And let you know that I'm excited that you're here. Go ahead and if you have a question as we go through the show, put a Q in front of your question and go ahead and type that, because we want to make sure that we get to those and answer them for you. Special shout out to our Accelerator community members who are here with us. Thank you for coming through. Thank you for hanging out with us. We have been having a good time as we've been working together and supporting each other through this path. Special shout out also to those who are here because you heard our content on some other platform, whether that was at your church, your doctor's office, or some other community event. We had a health fair just a couple of days ago, actually almost a week ago now. Wow, time flies, at our church. And so if you are here because you saw that and you met us there, we welcome you. Special shout out to our folks from Atlanta Berean in Atlanta, Georgia, to our folks from Riverside Chapel in Nashville, Tennessee, and the Magazine Street SDA Church Magazine Street Temple SDA Church in Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you for coming through. But wherever you're from, go ahead and drop that in the chat, drop that in the comments, because we want to know where you are. I know we've got folks who watch us from South Korea, we've got Netherlands, we've got some folks from London, and of course right around here from the United States in all of our states: Georgia, Atlanta, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, Nebraska, Texas, and I'm not going to call all of them, but you know who you are. Go ahead and drop that in the chat, because we want to make sure that we say hello to you. We've got some good things that we're going to be looking at here in just a minute. I've got my monitors off to the side, so you will see my blood sugars, and I've got my Dexcom Clarity, which is right down below, which we'll take a look at here in just a minute as we get through the rest of our show, and go from there. So one of the things I do want to point out to you is, if you are new to us or you're joining us again, you've been away, you've come back, or even if you've been in the community, you've noticed that we've had some changes to the YouTube channel. We have simplified what that looks like. And let me go ahead and I'm going to pull that up here really quickly. We've simplified that so that when you get to the channel, it is now simple for you to just jump in and begin walking along the path that we are on. So when you get there, you'll see that there are 2 playlists now. We've taken all the other videos off of that main page. They're still on the channel. As a matter of fact, I think we've done over 2,300 videos on the channel to date. But they're still on the channel. But when you get to the main page, what you will see is that we've simplified the process. You'll see there are 2 playlists. The first one is entitled Start Here. So Reverse Diabetes and Reclaim Your Health with Dr. Dwain Woode. And that is a curated list of the videos that we teach. These are the concepts that we teach. These are the platforms, the paradigms, the domains that we teach. If you're interested in knowing, hey, what does he talk about? That's it right now. So when you come to the channel, you send anybody to the channel, tell them go ahead and start there in the Start Here playlist. If you go to the description of the playlist and scroll through, there is a PDF that you can go and you can download that it's a starter guide PDF that helps to categorize the videos that are there, helps you walk through the videos, helps you understand what you should be getting from those videos. And there's some prompts and some exercises that you do. Download that free PDF from our website. And at the back, what I love about that, at the back of that document, there is the Limitless Living Commitment Statement. And you download that. There's some things that you read there and you agree to, and you sign it and date it. And I recommend that you take it and you print it out, put it in a frame, put it on your wall or your desk somewhere where when you look at it every day, you'll remind yourself, okay, this is what I committed to do for my health. All right, so wonderful, wonderful thing that you can do there. And then back on the YouTube channel, the second playlist that you will see is this one entitled This Week's Videos. So if you want to know what we're talking about this week, if you want to know the conversations that we've been having this week, if you want to know what I ate for the last meal this week, that's where you would find those videos. And those will change on a weekly basis. So next week, don't look for this week's videos in this week. It'll be next week's videos, and you'd have to go back to the channel and find those in a different space, okay? And this is all with the intention that it helps you be able to just come and get started on this path right away. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to restart and right? Just get over there and join in, and you'll get those. Now, the other thing I want to show you as we talk about reinventing the wheel is we have provided in this space, remember the Limitless Living, we educate, we empower, and we encourage. So everything that you see on the channel is with the intention of taking you down that metabolic pathway to long, healthy life. Let me say that again. Long, healthy life. All the numbers that you look at, your weight and your A1C and your blood sugars and your blood pressure and your cholesterol, all of those are good and those are important. Those are good metrics. Those are good spaces that we want to, that things that we're shooting for. But our ultimate goal is how do we keep you alive as long as possible? And how do we keep you as healthy as possible? And with that in mind, we're walking along the Limitless Living Health Action Plan. And in the space on the channel, there are spaces where you can, where you can find things that will take you through all of those. When we do our strength training, when we do our walking, when we do our fasting, all of those are provided here on the channel. All you got to do is jump in and plug in and get started. Here, in fact, is one of our, this is our strength strategy and mindset workout. One of the things that we're doing right? So we've been doing 100 days, 100-day walk to consistency. We started that at the beginning of the year. And then, of course, here we are doing the strength strategy and mindset. And we did 100 days of that. And then we are now in the bridge portion of that as we are implementing and installing those things as permanent features within our lives. Remember, consistency is what gives us the success. All right, so make sure you get over there and you hop in and take a look at that. All right, so let's go ahead now and let's take a look at what's been going on with my blood sugars. And here is my Libre. And here's my Libre. Right here, you see this is what my blood sugar is right now. Down below that, you'll see this graph. And that graph, you'll see a little break in the graph because I had to change my Libre earlier today. And that's what you see there. But if I take my finger, I can run it over those numbers. You get to see what those numbers are over the course of the last 12 hours. You see we started down in the 70s, and then 70s, up into the 80s, 90s, and then we got into the morning. And here's what I call the toothpaste effect. And right there I had to change the Libre, and then here we came back in. And we started going down, 70s, 70s, dipped below 70 just a little while ago, actually, and then now it's coming back up. What I love about this report is I can actually see what my time in range is, and we'll take a look at this a little bit more deeply when we look at my Dexcom Clarity. But for right now, for 7 days, it says that I am in target 98% of the time. You see that there. And 2% of those, 2% of the 100 is low, and that's usually when I'm fasting. So when I'm fasting, my blood sugar will dip below 70, and that's why you see it's not at 100%. If I go to the 90-day view, I'm in target 87% and 13% low. So you see that down at the bottom. If I go back and look at my average glucose, and you'll see that's my average right here on this line, and then I can go down and I can see what my numbers are divided by different times of the day. And I love that because it allows me to see, hey, is there a specific time where I'm having an issue? And we usually tell people we want their average blood sugar to be between 100 and 120, and you'll see there that I've been in the 80s, 90s, low 100s, which is great. Right? All right, so now let's go move over and let's take a look at what the Dexcom says. And so this is my Dexcom G7, and it says that my blood sugar right now is 106. Just like we did before, I can take my finger and run it across down here on the graph, and you'll see, so we're in the 70s, 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 101, 102, 70s, 90s, up to about 118. And this is where this one went out actually overnight. And so I didn't change it again until this morning. Actually, at the same time I changed my Libre. And so here's about 7 o'clock. It says I'm 119. And that's following what I call the toothpaste effect right in there. So low teens, low 100s, 140, 129, 106. Okay? And so that's what that is showing right now. And let's go ahead and let's look at what my blood sugars are according to my monitor. So I've got a Keto Mojo, which gives me glucose and ketones. And then I have a Contour, right, which will give me just blood sugar. So let's go ahead and grab our container. I need a brown for glucose, and then I need a blue one for ketones. I need some strips for the Contour, and then I also need a lancet. All right, let's get that off the side there and get a strip out for the Contour. If I can get one out there. All right, and here we are. So we get that one in, and go ahead and we're going to open up, this is the one for the blood sugar for the Keto Mojo. Let's get that out and get that into the monitor. All right. And so right now, I am at 71 hours in. We're going to be 72 hours here in just a little bit. We're going to go ahead and open into the fast, that is. Go ahead and open this one up. And this is the ketone. And I go ahead and open that because this is the one that always gives me some challenges getting out, so I want to make sure I don't have to do a second finger stick. All right, and so here's my lancet, and I'm going to go ahead and get a poke, get a finger stick right there. Ow, ow, ow. And that should give me a good, yep, there it is, a good brisk bleed. Get that started. Get that started on the on that one, and let's go back so you can see what the numbers are. So blood sugar is 74 according to the Keto Mojo, 82 according to the Contour, and of course right there you'll see according to the Dexcom I'm 106. If I move back here, this is the Libre, and you see right now it says 75. So the Libre is more in keeping with what these guys are right now. Now, I need to go ahead and keep that flow of blood going because I need another drop. And let's switch out for the ketone. And what do you think my ketones are going to be, by the way? Notice that we've had some fluctuations there. Let's get this one started. All right, there. Okay, that should be good. All right, so what do you think that's going to be? Let me move this down a little bit so that's a little clearer. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And ketones are 0.8. 0.8. So while that's doing, let me go ahead and I'm going to pull over the Keto Mojo and get that synced up so we can see what that is. And so when we talk about ketones that are 0.5 or less than 0.5 are considered normal. 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis, and then above 1.5 considered therapeutic ketosis. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this. So this looks like it's synced, and let's go here. So we're looking at these three numbers, right? So that big number that's in the circle, and then the glucose, which is 74, and then the ketones that are 0.8. And so the GKI, which is that big number, is a ratio of glucose to ketones. Glucose to ketones. And we want that number to be low. We want our glucose to be relatively low, right? And then we want ketones to be high. So in this case, my ketones are in the nutritional ketosis range, which is 0.5 to 1.5. Remember, below 0.5 is considered normal. And then above 1.5 is considered therapeutic ketosis. And so when we're talking about doing a ketogenic diet, talking about fasting so that we can get into ketosis, when we're talking about fasting mimicking diets, right? So we want ketones to be 0.5 or higher. And with the fasting mimicking ones, I'm going to take that one out for now. Let's just talk about fasting and ketogenic. We want our ketones to be 0.5 or higher, because at that point we know that we're definitely burning fat as calories. All right, and then let's go ahead and let's hop over and let's see what is going on according to my Dexcom. So let's hop over here. And so here's my Dexcom clarity report, and here's my 14-day average. So for 14 days, my average blood sugar has been 108. And once again, we tell people we want their average blood sugar to be between 100 and 120. And so that's right in keeping there. If I look at my time in range, it's 100%. And that is a range from 70 to 180. And my glucose management indicator is 5.9. So if I were to get an A1C based on these set of blood sugars that I've had for the last 2 weeks, I would expect my A1C to approximate a 5.9. Now, I can't call it an A1C because it's a calculated number. We did a show several weeks now ago where I went through my own personal labs that I had done when I saw my doctor. So go back and watch that. You get to see what my A1C was over the last 90 days. And now if I switch over to look at the 90-day view for this, my average is 113. All right, so still keeping in that 100 to 120. My time in range is 98% with 1% less than 1% low. Target being 70 to 180. And my GK or GMI, glucose management indicator, is 6.0. So once again, that's what I would expect the blood sugar to be. Now, if I go over and we can actually look at the actual numbers over the course of the last several days, and I want to go back and start right here, which is where we started our fast. If you've not seen the show yet, the pop-up live that we did when I ate my last meal, go ahead and watch that, and that you'll have some context as to what my blood sugar should be based on the meal that I ate. All right, and we'll talk more about that as we get into our fasting review. So finish eating here, and then watching these numbers over the next couple of days, we want those numbers to not be spiking up too high, and so we're staying now in the low 100s down into the 90s. Going into the next morning, we're in the low 100s, 90s, 90s, 90s. And right down here is where I call the toothpaste effect again. So I brush my teeth, and because there's sugar in the toothpaste, so the blood sugar pops up there to 120. So it went from down from a 99 at 6 and up to a 122, and then started coming back down over the course of the day, dropping down to the low 90s, sometimes into the 80s as we got it later in the day. So that's that next. And right here, by the way, let's see, where are we? Right in here is 24 hours. So 24 hours after I eat my last meal is where that is. Going into the next day, coming into that morning with 70s and 80s, and right about 6 o'clock again, we see the spike we got up to about 110 right there. And then coming back down over the course of the day into the 80s, 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 dipping down into the 70s, right? And this one, I'm not sure what happened right there. And then down 109, 109, and that was last night. And right here would be 48 hours, right? So right there is 48 hours at 81. And then coming into today, right, into the one, oh, that spiked up a little bit there. And so here's where my Dexcom ended, and I didn't restart that until this morning. And so right there is, we were 106, and looks like we spiked up to about 131, right? So a lot more vigorous rise this morning following that toothpaste, and then began coming down to where we are right now at 108. And so that's what's been going on over the last couple of days, blood sugar wise, and that's that is in keeping with what we would expect. Now, I would one of the things that I did several weeks ago is, if you remember, we had that same toothpaste effect, and that's why I changed toothpaste. And actually, I went back to the old one, which is why we started to see that spike again. And even that little spike will blunt some of the ketones that will be created. So I need to go back to the old one. I actually didn't like it, so that's why I switched back. But that's a whole another story. All right, so let's go ahead and let's hop over and let's have our discussion. We're talking about fasting. We're talking about fasting. And the question that you may be asking when you're out there, if you're out there, is why are we fasting? What does that mean? What does it give us? And fasting is part of our Limitless Living Health Action Plan. Okay? So let me pop over there really quickly. So Limitless Living Health Action Plan, and you'll see that there that says that there are these components to fasting, or components to our health that we're working with. And one of them, one of the most powerful ones, is this idea of fasting. So my earpiece just came apart, so let me go ahead and fix that. So one of them is this idea of fasting. And we are fasting because it provides us tremendous benefit with respect to our health. There are so many metabolic benefits that come from fasting. We've talked about several of them. You know, we could probably write a book on each one. And so the Health Action Plan lays that out for us. So let's go ahead and let's talk about that fast. Let me do something here really quickly. Let's see. Yeah, here we are. Okay. And so we're going to talk about fasting here in just a minute, and get into how do we get into the fast, how do we prepare for the fast, how do we get through the fast, how do we break the fast. So let's go ahead and let's do that here right now. All right, so fasting, and the reason we're talking about fasting is because we are using fasting as a tool. And anytime you have a tool, you want to know everything about the tool, how to use the tool, when to use the tool, what you should get when you're using the tool, okay? So we're breaking fasting down as a tool, and as I started saying, we are using fasting because fasting is a part of our health action plan. Remember, there's 7 tiers: walking, fasting, strength training, balance bites, rest and recovery, mental mastery, and of course structure and planning. And as part of that process, we're using fasting as one of those tools. And we're not going to take time to go through all of those right now. Come on back. We as we do our blueprint series, which is coming up, we'll be putting those in perspective as we talk about finishing strong. How do we finish strong? So what are the benefits of fasting? Fasting has an amazing ability to do 3 things. Number 1, decreasing insulin. Pause. When we talk about metabolism, which is the conversion of our food into energy, anything that happens along the process of that conversion can cause dysfunction within our metabolism. So fatty liver, obesity, high blood pressure, metabolic syndrome, putting us at risk for heart disease, so on and so forth. So that is what goes on in metabolism. And underlying a lot of that is what we call hyperinsulinemia. That is elevated insulin, where our body is making a supra dose of insulin because there's some dysfunction with how our body is regulating sugar, which is the big thing, and the things that we're eating. So because there's dysfunction, this hyperinsulinemia, one of the very first things that we want to do when we're writing, correcting, improving the metabolism is we want to decrease the amount of insulin that's in your body. Either that's your body's making it, or you're taking medications that are doing it, or you're actually taking insulin as a shot. Now, you're probably sitting out there, if you're not diabetic, and say, well, I'm not diabetic, so this doesn't affect me. It actually does. Because in order for your body to maintain good blood sugars with the type of diets that we eat sometimes, it has to produce a super amount of insulin to keep those blood sugars normal. So when you go to the doctor and they get your labs done, the numbers are fine. But why or how does the body keep it fine given what the diet is? And it's doing that because it's producing an extra amount of insulin. And that insulin is keeping it down. But the elevated insulin causes a problem, causes lots of downstream problems, right? That dysfunction of metabolism. So number one, when we fast, we decrease our insulin because when we're fasting, our body has a better ability to use the insulin that's on board to regulate the sugars that are already there so it doesn't have to make more or I don't have to take any more medication. Number one. Number two, suppressing the appetite. The appetite is what drives us off course most often in terms of our health and the things we've decided to do in terms of our food. And so if we decrease the appetite, as a matter of fact, I'm thinking now of a patient of ours who we've been seeing her for a while, and she used to come in and wanted to lose weight. We talk about weight, and she said, Dr. Woode, if you can help me not be hungry, then I would lose weight. And we've spent time here talking about the difference between psychological hunger and physical hunger. But it is the appetite that drives often the things that happen in our health, and being able to suppress the appetite is great. Now, insulin, by virtue of how insulin works, insulin is a storage hormone, so we put on weight. Insulin also has the ability to stimulate the appetite. And so when we decrease insulin, because we're fasting, the insulin goes down and our appetite also goes down. The stimulation of the appetite goes down. So decreasing insulin, suppressing appetite, and then the third pillar is to reduce sugar. So when we're reducing sugar, because we're not taking anything in because we're fasting, when we're reducing sugar, our body doesn't have to produce as much. We don't have to take as much medication. We don't have to take as much insulin. And so that whole process now begins working together. So we've suppressed the appetite or decreased the appetite. We suppress the insulin, decreases the insulin, suppress the appetite, and now we're reducing the sugar. So all the things that predispose us to dysfunctional metabolism, predispose us to diabetes, predisposes us to high blood pressure, high cholesterol, fatty liver, all those things now we've encapsulated those and we've improved them because we're fasting. So that's the power of fasting. And that's just a component of the benefits that we get from fasting. Not to mention all the other things that come along with it. Okay? So why do we fast? That's why we fast, because fasting is an amazing tool that gets us all of those benefits. Now, when I talk about fasting, the question is, why are we doing it? that was it. And so what we're doing right now is we're doing a fasting review. What do you need to know as you're fasting? As we talked about, when you fast, when you use a tool, you want to make sure that that tool is being used properly. And so when I talk about fasting, I break fasting up into three components. How do we prepare for the fast successfully? How do we get through the fast? And then how do we break the fast? And you'll get to see here in a little while what I'm using to break my fast, because I've got my plate right down here. But let's go ahead and let's start with talking about getting or preparing for the fast. So what does that mean? What does that look like? And what is it? What is it? How do we get ready? Well, the question is why preparation is key. Preparation is key is because how you prepare has a profound impact on how you get through the fast, the success that you have. Just like anything else, if you're going on a trip, getting ready for the trip gives you a better chance of successfully getting to the trip, getting through the trip, and enjoying the trip. If you're building a house, the way you prepare the land, prepare that you got all the contractors who are coming through. The preparation sets you up for success. And just like that, here in this space, if we're going to fast, fasting is not just about not eating food. Fasting has a tremendous intertwining pathway in our lives, how we think, how we interact, so fasting is not just not eating. And so how we prepare has a profound impact on what goes on when we talk about the fast and how successful we are. So preparation is key. Okay. And then, so what are the places that we want to make sure that we are dealing with? And when I do my check-in, normally we talk about how I'm feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally. Those are three of the domains of health, if you've been following. They are also the places where I do my check-in when I talk about fasting. And they are three of the primary places that we need to prepare when we are getting ready to fast. Because how we deal with these three areas has a profound impact on whether we are successful and whether we have a good time in the fast itself. Okay? So make sure that we don't skip this. We can't skip this. Often people will say, oh, yeah, I'm just going to start fasting. Well, you may be successful in getting through the fast this time. Yeah, you may be successful. But sometimes what happens is the difficulty that you have in this fast will have a profound impact on whether you fast again and whether your brain will let you do that. Okay? So, how we prepare for the fast. So physically, mentally, and emotionally. Physically, when we talk about that, we're talking about several things, but three primary ones I want to talk about. Number one, how we rest. Resting has a profound impact on your ability to get through the fast successfully. Because in the fast, there are metabolic changes, there are hormonal changes, there are biochemical changes that are going on. And if you're not well rested, then those changes as the body switches from burning one fuel source to another, those can show up as fatigue. And people feel those more profoundly as the body's making those switches if they're not rested. So number one, we want to make sure that you're rested. When we talk about rest, we talk about getting at least 7 hours of sleep, and rest doesn't just involve sleep. It involves you actually de-stressing, coming aside from those things that are causing anxiety, those things that are raising your cortisol, because cortisol has an effect also on sugar. Okay, so getting good rest. Number two is making sure that you are hydrated. Hydrated. You see me drinking often. I'm grabbing my cup. The way that your body gets energy and oxygen to your cells is through blood. And blood is carried in the volume that's in your body. So if the carrying capacity goes down because you're dehydrated, then the body begins having issues. Like what? Well, if I have less carrying capacity, less blood, because my volume is down, then the body has to speed up the process of the volume that's there. So you feel that like palpitations, feel like your heart's racing or skipping a beat. because everything has to go faster to get the same amount of energy to the cells. So when volume goes down, we begin feeling that. Also, if my volume is down, when I stand up normally, everybody, what happens is the blood begins going to your legs, pools, and then your body squeezes that back up, and it goes back up into the heart and back up into the brain. Well, if the volume is down, when you stand up, there's not an immediate response. So the body's trying to do that, but because the volume is lower, it doesn't get there right away. And so you can feel lightheaded, you can feel woozy, right? And that's because of dehydration. Also, the electrolytes that go along with hydration, making sure that you have that in place, because often when people are not eating, they also are not thinking about drinking. And then the third one is the things that we're talking about physical now, right? So physically, mentally, we haven't gotten to mental yet. The things that we eat. When you eat, the things that you eat cause hormonal changes in your body, cause, of course, calorie changes in your body, and definitely cause blood sugar changes in your body. And so our goal is when we get into the fast, that we get to the fast, we get into ketosis as quickly as possible, and we begin burning fat. We begin improving our metabolism, getting more insulin sensitive. We get autophagy that's going on, so the body's cleaning itself up. And if my blood sugars are high, then my body does not go into ketosis because insulin has to be there to keep those blood sugars lower. And remember, insulin and ketones can't exist in the same space for long. It's kind of like matter and antimatter. Right? I always tell people it's kind of like when you, on those sci-fi movies, they say if you go back in time, don't interact with yourself, because you can't be in the same space. So when we are eating, coming into the fast, you want to make sure you're eating things that will maintain good glycemic control, stable glycemic control, good glycemic control, because you can be stable up here, right? we want stable down here, so that your body can begin decreasing the insulin and we can get into ketosis quickly so that we can now get those benefits. So resting, making sure you're hydrated, and then the things that we eat. And then talking about the mental part of what we're doing. When we, trying to find a good way of saying this. There is this idea that the lenses through which we see the world have a profound impact on how we behave. And that is so true. Our understanding of something will dictate and affect how we behave relative to that thing. There's this crazy story, and I'm not sure if it's a true story, but I hear it all the time. You know, they tell it at churches, they tell it in motivational speeches and so forth. But it's this father is on a train or on a vehicle, a train, a bus, something. And his kids are like wreaking havoc on the train. He's just sitting there and he's quiet. And there's somebody sitting next to him, and they're fussing about, him letting the kids do whatever they're doing. And they get to their destination, and the person is still complaining. It gets to one of the attendants that was on the train, and the attendant says to them, "Oh, you have to excuse him. They are coming from his wife's funeral. So mom died, and they just came from the funeral." And so the perspective of that person changed. Now, it didn't change the fact that the kids were still, jumping up and down and keeping noise, and they were disruptive. But because of the thought process now, because of understanding what's going on, there was context. And the context brought sympathy and perhaps even empathy. So how we see the world, the frame shift that we put to the world affects how we behave. Remember, things will happen in your life. Things will happen in your life. And those things don't have an immediate effect until you give meaning to what that is. People can say whatever they want, but until you give meaning to the words, there's no effect yet. People can behave in a certain way, but until you give meaning to that, there's no effect. In fact, somebody steps on your toes and it's painful, but you don't respond in a way yet. You may want to respond. If somebody says, hey, I'm sorry, man, I didn't realize, right? All of a sudden, you're good. It still hurts. But if that person is like, with, nonchalantly and without any remorse, then you respond in a different way. Why? Because the definition, the meaning that you attached to that action changed. And so when we attach meaning, then meaning drives our emotions. Emotions drive our behaviors. Behaviors drive our actions. And actions ultimately are what give us the result. So when we're thinking about fasting, the way we think about fasting, the way we think about the world around us affects what's going on. And this is a great time to talk about the heat model, because the heat model, and we'll talk more about it here in just a minute when we talk emotionally, the heat model is a way of understanding what the buttons are that push, what the things are that push my buttons. So as I get into the fast, I want to mentally prepare for that. I want to understand that there are going to be some things that are going to show up, because normally I use food as a buffer. I use food to calm myself. I use food to distract me. I use food. There's all kinds of stuff I use food for. But remember, you won't have food during the fast. And so how you think about things, your concepts, your way of dealing with things, very important. Do you have the skills that you need? Do you have a way of dealing with emotions? Do you have a way of dealing with people? Do you have a way of dealing with this? Do you have a way, right, mentally? And then, of course, emotionally. And emotionally. So here's the thing. The emotions are kind of like a roller coaster. Have you ever been on a roller coaster? Yeah, I've been on one. And the idea is that the roller coaster is going along, and then at some point in all of the roller coasters, there's a point where it climbs, and it gets to that top, right? And it's coming down the other side. Now, you could be at the top and you could decide all you want. Hey, you know what? I don't want to go down. But guess what? You're coming down because you're on the roller coaster, you're in the car, and just the momentum of what's going on is bringing you down the other side. The same thing with emotions. Often we will let emotions do what they want, and we'll get up here. We'll be so frustrated, so mad, so anxious, so worried, so depressed, right? So we get up here and then we try to stop it. But guess what? It's coming down the other side. So if you've decided, hey, I'm going to fast, and you let those emotions ride, and the emotions are saying, no, we're eating, guess what? We're going to eat. So our goal is to not let those emotions get up here. And if it's heading that way, how do we blunt it? How do we circumvent it? How do we deal with it? And this is where understanding who we are, how we are, what are the things that push our buttons comes in. And that is we've done the COPE model, COPE, the clarify, observe, pause, and execute. Understanding how those work, understanding how to use that, very important as we talk about what's going on here as we're preparing for the fast. Now, notice we haven't even talked about food yet, other than the last thing we ate. This is all the preparation that goes into fasting. And the better you get at this, the more benefit and the more success you're going to have as you get into the fast. Okay? Awesome. All right. So that's the preparation for the fasting. The couple of key things that I want you to get here, some takeaways that I want you to get. So let me go over and let's pull that up really quickly. So as we're talking about the fasting, here we are. So one of the things that I want you to make sure that you're understanding is that preparation is key. Preparation is so important. It is not optional. And you want to prepare mentally. Now, mentally, physically, mentally, and emotionally, but I put mentally there specifically because it is a big driving factor. It is the thing that helps you actually deal with the physical and the emotional, how you think about things. You want to make sure you get good rest. You want to make sure you're eating nutrient-dense foods, not calorie-dense, but nutrient-dense. And then you want to make sure that you are in community. Community is so, so important in what we do if we're going to be successful and if we're going to get through this fast properly. Now, one thing, let me back up a little bit because I do want to point one thing out, and that is this idea of our environment. Our environment is also very important. We want to clean out our environment from temptation. And you'll see there it says remove unhealthy snacks. I should actually just take that and say just remove snacks. There's no physiologic reason for snacks. That's a whole nother conversation, right? You want to create a fasting friendly zone. So keep your kitchen stocked with healthy teas, water, fasting supportive drinks. Because sometimes we talked about dehydration here a minute ago. Sometimes we'll feel dehydrated and we'll think we're hungry. And then you want to prepare distraction. We're talking about the environment. Prepare distraction. Plan to read, plan to walk, plan to meditate, plan to get together with friends, plan to get together with family. Things that will take your mind away from the fasting, away from the fact that you think you're hungry. And this is a great time to talk about the difference between physiologic and physical hunger. Often what we're feeling is not physical hunger. It's all up here. And that comes from the heat model that we talked about, that you heard me mention a little while ago. When we're talking about the heat model, those things that push our buttons, that take us off of our plan, that will make us say, okay, I'm going to eat right now, when we've decided that we're not going to eat, or we're not going to do whatever that is. Habits, emotions, access, and taste. Those are the things that push our buttons. Habits, the habits that we've gotten into, the things that we see around us. Yeah, we eat because we go to the movies, for example. People just came over to the house and you just finished eating, but guess what? You're going to eat again because that's what we do. So habits, emotions, access, and taste. So emotions, right? We just talked about emotions. That is, when we get that roller coaster, when we get to the top, oh yeah, we're going to go down the other side. Access, and this is what we're talking about, cleaning out the environment. So simply having things around us can trigger us and push those buttons where we eat when we don't want to eat, but just because those things are there. And then taste is, we remember what that thing tasted like. What, when mama cooked it, or daddy cooked it, or cousin Sue cooked it, we remember how it tasted, what it made us feel like when we were with that person and we were in that place. All of those things, habits, emotions, access, and taste. Very, very important as we talk about, hey, how we're going to be successful. Okay? So I wanted to make sure that I mentioned those because they do play a huge component in how successful we are as we are in the fast. And then, right? So we talked about preparing for the fast. Then, how do we get through the fast successfully? Lots of things are going on when we're in the fast. We're going to talk about fasting over the 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. You can divide it into lots of different ways. I tend to talk about it in 24-hour periods, but here we're going to break it down a little bit more. Talk about it in 6-hour chunks, so 0 to 6 hours. And technically, 0 to 6 hours is not considered fasting. It's considered the postprandial period. So that period during or after you're eating, when your body is just taking all the food that you ate and is processing it, is digesting it, is breaking it down, it's shuttling it away to different places that it needs to go to, whether it's the liver or the fat cells, or is going to use for energy, wherever it needs to go. That's what's going on in this postprandial period. And you'll see some things that say maybe this only lasts about 4 hours, so 4 to 6 hours. Energy levels are high, glucose levels and blood sugar levels are high, insulin is high because you've just finished eating. And this is an important phase as we get into the fast. We talked about preparation for the fast. The foods that you ate before this have a profound impact on how long this period is. So the more the body has to deal with the things that come from the meal you just ate, the longer this period is. And if this period stays long, then we don't get to get into the ketosis that we want readily and as swiftly. So we want to shorten this period, then what we got to do is we got to eat some stuff that doesn't cause those big spikes. Right? So that's the 0 to 6 hours. And then 6 to 12 hours is the early fasting stage. Insulin levels are starting to go down because blood sugar levels are going down. And we said earlier that fasting lowers or decreases insulin. And this is one of the ways that it does that. When that blood sugar goes down, the insulin levels begin to going down. And then there's a signal that comes that says to the body, hey, I've shuttled everything away. My blood sugar is starting to go down. Now let me go back and let me get some of the stuff that I was storing out of storage so I can begin using it. Whether that's for energy, whether for building blocks, for any of the things that are going on in my body, let's go ahead and do that. Okay? The postprandial period, 0 to 6 hours, and the early fasting stage, 6 to 12 hours. And then we get to where we're transitioning to using fat. That's the 12 to 18 hours. And in this phase, the glucose levels continue to go down, insulin levels continue to drop, and my body now begins saying, remember, insulin and ketones can't be together? Yeah, and they can't be there because the body, the insulin, will prevent me from going to burn fat to make ketones. So as my insulin levels begin going down, now my body starts looking at the fat cells and say, hey, let's go burn some of that stuff right there. And this is once my liver has used up all the glycogen that's there, right? And that usually takes about 24 to 36 hours. So once again, there are these phases. Right? So if we prolong a particular phase, then the time that we spend in ketosis may not be as much as we think. Right? So people say, well, I fasted for 24 hours. Well, if it took your body, 20 hours to get through these phases, then you're only really in the fasting, quote unquote, ketosis for 2 hours. Well, 4 hours if he did 20 hours. Okay? And then moving on to our 18 to 24 hour period, and ketosis is there. Ketosis is going. Glycogen stores have gone or nearly depleted from the liver, because remember, it has to go through that first before it burns the fat. Autophagy starts and is ramped up. It's actually started a little earlier, but it's ramped up now. Autophagy is that period where the body is cleaning up and recycling all the broken, damaged parts of itself, and is sending those back to us as better components, more efficient components. That all happens as part of fasting. That's why people talk about improvement in neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, or improving neuropathy, right? Or decreasing cancer risk, or having better responses to chemotherapy for those people who have cancer. Immunity improves. Inflammation goes down. All of that's happening during this period. And the way to get through this fasting, understanding these things are going on, once again, the same thing as when we started the fast. How we prepare for the fast? We make sure we're getting good rest. We make sure that we're hydrated. We make sure that we're distracted. We make sure that we're cleaning out our environment so that we don't have those triggers. Understanding what our triggers are. Using the COPE model to get through when things do trigger us. Understanding this, so clarify, observe, pause, and execute. Understanding that you're not hungry, right? So I'm not hungry. So what is this that I'm feeling? That's the clarification. Observe, where am I feeling it in my body? Because that may give you a sense of what emotion it is. If my stomach is churning, maybe I'm anxious. If I'm all closed up, maybe I'm sad. Right? If my top of my head is hot and my ears are hot, maybe I'm mad. So what is it? Observing, where is it in my body? Because that tells me what's happening. What emotion do I feel? Then I can deal with the emotion. And then pausing. Pausing is that process of taking a breath, of breathing, deep breathing. Remember box breathing? We learned about that. Or counting to 10, or going out back and lifting some weights. We're pausing to give our prefrontal cortex the ability to take over from the amygdala, because the amygdala is that part of our body or our brain that's ready to fight or ready to move from danger. And often it's the moving from danger, which is eating, that we default to. So we're pausing, letting that part of the brain make a decision for us. And then we execute. So we do something other than we normally do. So we normally eat, but we can't eat because we're fasting. So what else am I going to do? And in that case, you have to have had a bag of tools that you've worked on, that you've practiced, so you can stick your hand in that tool bag at any point and pull something out so that you can do that other than eating. A minute ago, I mentioned working out. So that's one of my in the bag things. That's one of my execute. The breathing. The grounding activities that we do, if you've been following us on our show, right? Strength, strategy, and mindset. The grounding activity that we do at the end. The breathing that we do at the end. Maybe you have some mantras that you've created. I am doing this because I'm being healthy. I am improving my health. I am losing weight. I am becoming metabolically active. Maybe those are on your desk somewhere. So how do we get through the fast? That's how we get through the fast. And then, of course, we talked about preparing for the fast, talking about getting through the fast, and we want to talk about breaking the fast as well. And let me go ahead. I'm going to pull up. Pull up my plate here so we can see what I've got on the menu. All right, let's get back here. All right, so there we are. So how do we? So what are we going to do? So breaking the fast is just as important as how we prepare for the fast and how we get through the fast. Okay, and let's go ahead and let's take a look right here at what I've got. So I have. So this is my plate. This is what I've got. And this is a salad, and we'll walk through the salad in light of the balanced bites, which is the concept that I want you to always be mindful of. This is how we eat. It's not a diet. It's not a list of foods. It is the concept that takes us through the fast. And in fact, it is the concept that you should be thinking about anytime you're thinking about food. Right? But before we get there, before we stay there, let's hop back over and let's talk a little bit about the fasting. And so once again, preparing for the fast, getting through the fast, and then breaking the fast. And so when we talk about breaking the fast is important, and it's important to talk about that because there are some key tips that I want you to get. So as we come to the end of the fast, you want to make sure that you are monitoring. One of the reasons for monitoring blood sugars, monitoring ketones, is to understand what the food that you're about to eat or the food that you're eating is doing. Even when this is not related to fasting, in your regular normal day, in your regular normal life, as you're working on metabolism, I recommend that people also monitor their blood sugars and monitor their ketones. In fact, just yesterday I was talking to someone about ketones and talking to them about monitoring, because the idea that we have about blood sugar is that if my blood sugar is normal, then everything else is okay. And that's okay for sugar. But if we're talking about our weight, and we're talking about fatty liver, and we're talking about metabolic syndrome and all those things, then just having a normal blood sugar, which, 99, is not where we want to be. We actually want blood sugars that are lower. And you've seen, as we've talked about, where my blood sugars have been and what my ketones are. You've seen my blood sugar at 100, 101, actually sometimes 99, and my ketones still be like 0.1. Because in order for my blood sugar to be where it is, 101, then my body has to make insulin to keep it at that level. As I fast, of course, the blood sugar goes down, and because it goes down, then my insulin level has to drop. So monitoring allows you to see what different foods, different activities, rest, your emotional state, it allows you to see how all of those affect your blood sugar. So that's why that's important. Okay, so monitor. Number two, we want to talk about portion control. Often it's not that people are eating bad, quote unquote, things, is that they're eating too much of the thing. I can eat enough cabbage or enough broccoli or enough whatever to make my blood sugar go to 200. Oh yeah, you can. But I thought broccoli was good for you. It is good for you, but anything in excess causes problems. So portion control. So when you go to the restaurant and they give you that plate, it doesn't mean that that's a portion. That's what they're giving you. Often the portion is much less than they give you. Unless you go to certain restaurants. And I've been mad at those restaurants because they gave me, I was like, this is not a portion. I tell you that. Because it's too small. And then you want to eat slowly. It takes about 20 minutes for the signal to get from your stomach to your brain that you're full. So if you're not eating slowly, if you're just going at it, then you end up eating a lot more, much faster than you would if you slow down. That's why I start with a salad. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And then you want to avoid sugary processed foods. When we eat highly sugary foods, highly processed foods, then the body blood sugar goes up, which should make sense. When the blood sugar goes up, my body has to produce insulin. And insulin right there causes weight to go up. It stimulates my appetite. And so I ended my fast and I had some benefits in the fast, but now for the next 36, 12 hours, 24 hours, I'm eating like I'm ravenous because what I ate coming out of the fast caused my appetite to go up, and now I'm putting on weight, not just because insulin is causing weight gain, but I'm eating more. Right? So you want to make sure that you are doing a good job of what you're eating. And let's go ahead and I'm going to pop this up because this is an idea. This is how we should be eating. The things that we're eating for our meals, post-fast, how we break the fast, are actually the same things that we should be eating in a general sense. Balanced bites, whole foods, minimized processing, no added sugar, lean protein, healthy fats, starchy, non-starchy vegetables, appropriate portion sizes, tasty and flavorful. That's how we should be thinking. Notice, there's not a list of foods there. There's not a do or don't. This is the concept of how I'm going to eat. And so if we look at this meal that I have here, let's walk through that together, right? So whole foods, and so this is a salad that I made. So whole foods, so most of the things here are whole foods. We got some processed things, the cheese, and we have got the dressing. All right, so I've got some, what kind of cheese? I have some feta cheese, I've got some cheddar cheese, and I've got some Parmesan cheese on here. And then the dressing, of course, is processed. So whole foods, minimized processing, no added sugar. And once again, the only thing that probably has the sugar in it is the dressing. Lean protein. So I have here, this is some jerk chicken that I made. All right, so lean protein. Healthy fats. I've got some cheese. Well, go back to the protein. So protein, I've got some garbanzo beans. And right in here, there's some sunflower seeds as well. Okay, so lean protein, healthy fats. Starchy and non-starchy vegetables, leaning more towards the non-starchy. And so there are no starchy vegetables in here. I've got some cauliflower. There's some baby spinach. I've got some lettuce under there. Oh, I've got some cabbage under there as well. I've got some cucumbers. And usually tomatoes will cause my blood sugars to spike. So I have some there. It just adds color, but I'm not going to eat a lot of those. Portion size. Yep. Oh, I forgot here. So I've got some avocados. So that will give me healthy fats as well. So lean protein, portion size, and tasty and flavorful. Yeah, buddy. I'm getting ready to dive into this. Okay. So when talking about putting together our meals, that's how we want to begin. That's how we want to think, not just about the meal that we're using to break the fast, but the meals that we're eating in our eating windows as well. That's the concept that we want to use whenever we're thinking about food. Now, I want to point out that doesn't mean that you're never, for example, if we go back to Balanced Bites, let's do that really quickly. If we go back to Balanced Bites does not say you cannot eat things that are not whole food. It says whole foods first. So if you're sitting at a table and you're getting ready to get a meal, the things you should choose first are the things that are whole foods. Often what we do is we choose the non-whole foods, things that are highly processed, high sugar, and when we eat those, it stimulates the appetite so much that we actually never get to the whole food stuff. And we're ravenous. So whole foods first. Then you can go back and have some of the other stuff, okay? But whole foods first. All right. Okay. And so when we talk about breaking the fast or ending the fast, we want to make sure that we're doing that. So monitoring blood sugars, watch our portions, eat slowly, and then avoid highly processed sugary foods. And then just some things to consider as we are talking about ending the fast. You want to consider these, right? So when breaking your fast, choose foods that help maintain stable blood sugars, but they provide nutrition. They're gentle on the digestive system. So don't sit down for the first meal and eat like a 12-course meal, if there's such a thing. You want to focus on low glycemic index foods. Those are things that are less than 50 GI of 50 or less. Lean proteins, healthy fats, and hydration. And those kind of are in keeping with what we talked about a minute ago when we talked about Balanced Bites. That is how we get through the fast successfully. That's how we start the fast or get ready for the fast, how we break the fast, and how we get through the fast successfully. Okay? And you want to make sure that you're doing that. Make sure that you are going through that process, because that is how you're going to be successful. That's how we use fasting as a tool. Remember, it's a tool. That's how we use fasting as a tool to get us where we need to be. And that is how we fast successfully. Yeah. All right, so always so excited when we are able to talk through that process, because that's one that often can give people a lot of trouble. How do we fast? How do I start fasting? What do I do? What do I need to understand? And that lays that out for you. This would be a great for people who are in your life who are interested in fasting. This would be a great place to bring them on Fridays. We do a fasting review every Friday. We'd love to see you come through. I do see. Let me pop over and say hello from the comments. Hey. Let's see. We've got Kenty. Kenty says, hey. So, smiley face. Hey, Kenty, what's up? How are you? And Kenty said, ha. Looks tasty. Yes. I'm going to eat it in just a minute. Let's see. I'm at 24 hours. Okay, 24 hours. I love it. Gotta love the avocado. Oh, man. Those are one of my favorite things. And then says, almost time to break the 72 hour. That is correct. And here we are. That's right. We're right here. Okay, so we're going to break the 72 hours right now. Right now, Kenty. Let's do that. Let's see. I'm going to come back over here. Actually, let's do this one. All right. Ready? Here we go. avocado first. That is good. Just that one bite. That is good. So if you are, I always often ask people to say, what are you eating? When you break your fast, what do you eat? Cauliflower, crunchy, I love it. And one of the reasons I eat salads is that salad gives me bulk. It helps my stomach stretch. The signal gets to my brain that I'm full, so I don't end up eating as much. The fiber that's in there helps me to stay fuller longer. And I love the different flavors and textures and delicious. All right, let's get that over to the side. So, as we continue in our space, I want you to remember that everything we do is based on the Triple E formula for success. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. We educate with the shows, with the blogs, with the podcast. We empower with the tools that we learn. And we've done several tools here as we went through this show. The COPE model, the HEAT model, talking about fasting as a tool as well. The Limitless Living Health Action Plan, another tool. Those are designed to give you the ability to implement the things that we're learning. Our 100-day walk to consistency and health, another tool. Our strength, strategy, and mindset, another tool. When we do our fasting check-ins, another tool, so that you understand how fasting works. And then we encourage with this amazing community that you are part of, that you are growing as you are helping to enhance and to give value and give richness to your story, your successes, your challenges. All of those bring a richness to the community that would not be here if you were not here. And as we're learning the Limitless Living Pathway, we want to make sure that we're not just doing this by ourselves, but we're bringing people with us, bringing them along. When we're seeing benefits in our lives, oh yeah, bring some other people around. And people will begin asking you, hey, what are you doing? Right? How did you lose your weight? How's your blood sugar get so much better? Why do you feel and look so much happier? Be a voice in your community, in your family, at your church, at your on your job, in your doctor, wherever you are. Be a voice that says, "Hey, there's a different way. There's a better way of doing this." I'm always excited when I get to hang out with you because I'm excited to see the benefits you're having, all the successes that are going on in your life. And to see this community continue to grow as we take charge now of our health. And remember, our goal is how do we stay alive as long as possible, and how do we stay as healthy as possible? That's the goal. On the way to that goal, we get better blood sugars, better A1Cs, our weight goes down, our fatty liver improves, our blood pressure gets better, our cholesterol gets better, we decrease the risk of Alzheimer's and heart disease and strokes and on and on and on. All of those are on the way to living longer and being healthier. so that we can do the things we want to do. So we can go ahead and we can see our daughter and our son get married, see them graduate from college, see our grandchildren get born, teach our grandchildren some things that we want to do, be able to hang out with our family and our friends. And after we've put so much time into working, to be able to travel and enjoy the money that we spent all those years trying to amass. That's why we do what we do. And I've had the pleasure of walking along with you and have the pleasure of hanging out with you. Oh, let me go over and see some comments. Let me do that really quickly. Kenty says, she said, oh, enjoy. Good hydration in there. Happy to hang out with you over 20 minutes of this show. Okay, that's it. Glad that you came through. Have an awesome, inspiring Friday afternoon. And right now it's Saturday, 6:17. Okay. And then Pam, what's up, Pam? Pam says, great review. Thank you for coming through. Thank you for hanging out with us and being in this space. Always the community members. Hey, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. We're coming back tomorrow. We'll do Video from the Vault, 9 p.m. Central. Make sure you join us for that. And then Sunday morning, This Week in Review at 6 a.m. Central. And then on Monday, we'll be right back here for Dwain Woode MD Live as we continue our Play Your Own Game. Well, continue our Finish Strong. We ended Play Your Own Game. We continue our Finish Strong series, this bridge that we're doing as we move into the Blueprint series that's coming up as we start into the next month. All right. Thank you for being here. This is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Woode with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life. Avoid complications. Go to the next level. We're creating the life we've always wanted, and we are living limitless lives. Now go live a limitless life, and we'll see you in the community, and we'll see you as we continue working to be healthy. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend.